we're here to protect you and the ones that you love. It's a good feeling to know that our efforts aren't going unnoticed.
It actually brought tears to my eyes to know that we have this support.
You're welcome. I must just say you're welcome. It's stressful, but we're not going anywhere.
Welcome to another edition of Bucknell Football Through the Decades. This is Todd Newcomb here at Bucknell, and I want to thank our friends at Geisinger for sponsoring today's session. Today we have the 1980s featured. That's a great decade. That's my decade at Bucknell, and I want to thank our guests for joining, Coach Cicchini. Our current player on the call today is Wil Mcfarlane. Rick is one of our captains for the upcoming season. You'll hear a little bit from him. We have three outstanding guests representing the 80s that we'll have a great conversation with, and I'm going to take a second to introduce those guests, and then we'll turn it over to Coach Cicchini to ask some great questions. So our first guest from the class of 1982 is Ken Jenkins. And before we even get into what Ken did and all of his great accomplishments, I want to tell Ken that he was a young, I don't know how old he was, but I grew up on Long Island. And in 1981, I got the opportunity with my family to go to a Bucknell football game. It was as close as Bucknell was going to get to my home. It was at the Merchant Marine Academy, and Ken Jenkins busted for 3 touchdowns in the first half of that game. He was all over the field, and I remember looking at my dad and saying, wow, this guy can play. And that was my opportunity to see him play in person. And then, obviously, I got a chance to go to Bucknell after that. But, Ken, it was great to see you play and actually, see what you could do on the field. So talking about what Ken did, he was the team captain in 1981. He led the team in both rushing and scoring in 1979 and 1980. He had the third best single rushing season in school history with 1,270 yards in 1980. He still holds the single game all-purpose yardage total at 341 yards. He did that against Westchester in the 1980 season. He ranks 5th in school history with 11 100-yard rushing games. He was an ECAC Division I AA All-East first-team selection in He was an AP All-American third-team selection in 1980. He won the Stuart M. Smith Award as the team's outstanding newcomer in 1979. He won the Gridiron Club Award as the team most valuable player in 1980. And he played with both the Detroit Lions and the Washington Redskins in the NFL. And finally, he was elected to the Bucknell Athletics Hall of Fame in 1987. We've got 3 really great representatives that span the whole decade of the 80s. So our next guest is Wil Mcfarlane, and he was in the middle of the 80s. He graduated in 1986. Wil was the team captain in 1985. He was behind some really good linebackers and waited patiently to get his opportunity to get on the field. And when he did so as a senior, he had an outstanding season with 76 tackles for the Bison and was a great team leader. His coach, Coach Bob Curtis, said if it were any other school, he would have been starting years before that. In addition, Wil has been one of our most diehard supporters of the Bud Rank Tom Gadd golf outing, the program's biggest fundraiser. That program started in 1996, and I'm not sure Wil has missed one in the 24 years that we've been doing that event. This is from the class of 1990. That's Scott Achenbach. Scott was the team captain in 1989. He has 2 of the top 6 single-season passing yardage marks. He still holds the single-season total offense mark at 2,511 yards in 1989. He ranks 2nd on the career total offense list with 5,404 yards. He holds the career touchdown pass mark at 42. He holds the consecutive completion mark at 18 when he did that against Colgate in 1989. He ranks 2nd on the career passing yardage list at Bucknell with 5,256 yards. And in 1989, he was in All-Colonial League, which is what the Patriot League was called, changing to the Patriot League. He was an All-Colonial League first-team selection in 89 and also the league's most valuable player in that season. He was the Gridiron Club MVP for the team in 1988 and 1989, and he was elected to the Bucknell Athletics Hall of Fame in 2005. So, Coach, again, a great group of guests, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Todd. Really appreciate you guys being here. It's such an honor to be able to sit down and kind of moderate these discussions that we've been having with an unbelievable group of alumni from all different decades throughout Bucknell football's history. So Thanks for taking the time out of your guys' busy schedules to be with us here today. We're going to start off with Ken. I'm going to ask you guys a bunch of questions here, and everybody will get a chance to, in turn, to answer each of them. So, Ken, you're going to be up first. And the first question I always ask of all the alums we talk to here is to tell us your recruiting story. How did you wind up playing football for Bucknell University?
That's a really good question. I don't really remember being recruited that heavily. I went to Landon School down here in Bethesda, which has produced some really good athletes for Bucknell. And Bucknell has always been a great place for us to matriculate to. And it was on the list that my college advisor said. I came and visited, and I sat down with Bob Curtis, who I'm sure you all remember. He was a very interesting character. And the truth of the matter is, he said, yeah, we'd like to have you here, Ken. That'd be great. And my decision really came down to, there were a couple of the Landon guys who I was really close with. And, guys who, I'm sorry, it's my daughter, but I'll call her back. Guys who I was really close to, who I played sports with as, all through Landon. And they said, hey, this is a great place to come. Why don't you just come and see how it goes? And that's what I did. I ended up at Bucknell. I thought it was a great mix of sort of academics and social life and sports that I wanted to keep playing. I had no idea at the time, or even later in my career at Bucknell, that the NFL was in my future. Zero. I didn't come there for thinking that the NFL was the next step for me.
I gotcha. That's interesting. Will, how about you?
Coach Susan came to my high school, so he just impressed me with his demeanor, and and then you just start. I had my parameters. I only wanted to be so far away from home. I grew up in North Jersey, so something within 3-4 hours. You want to go to one of the better schools you can get into academics wise, and like the size of the school. Didn't want something super huge, didn't want something super small. So, it was just a good fit for me. And Coach Susan really impressed me with, the way he talked to me and just was honest, and same with Coach Curtis. Just kind of fell into place.
Great. Scott, how about you?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I mean, as what Ken said, don't remember being heavily recruited. Actually, I broke my collarbone last play of my high school career. So all through kind of the main recruiting cycles through that last or that winter, I was in a sling, wasn't really getting much track attention. Coach DePew, some of you guys might know, came through town. We really kind of hit it off. Visited Bucknell, visited a few other schools, but I was going to be an engineering major, great engineering program, great school, beautiful campus. Liked the folks I met there, liked the players that hosted me, and wound up pulling the trigger with Bucknell.
Outstanding. Yeah, it's amazing how all these years later, at least certainly for me, I can remember exactly the names of the coaches who recruited me and how I wound up in college. But you asked me to name that history professor, that English professor that I had. Those names have long since left my memory, but the football coaches stay with you. Outstanding. Good. All right. Well, let's, how about this? As a player, talk about how you matured on the field, basically from day one when you showed up at Bucknell for the first day of camp as a freshman, all the way up until your senior season. And Scott, we'll start off with you on this one.
College athletics is a lot more. Went to Muhlenberg High School, small school outside of Reading, Pennsylvania. The programs were small, some multi-sport athletes, so I just kind of went from one to the other. Didn't have a lot of that training regimen. So for me, it was getting in and I mean, I was a scrawny kid coming out of high school, so it was getting me on that kind of that workout regimen. Always had a good work ethic, so that wasn't anything new, but the discipline around learning the playbooks, learning the defenses, being able to read the defense and developing the timing with receivers and just with the entirety of running the offense. So was a lot of discipline around that. Took me a few years to kind of get control of all that stuff and progress. But a lot for me was physical maturity. I think I was 6'1", 6'2", 180 when I got there. Freshman, after the freshman year, I was 200, and proceeded to get stronger and just develop and the maturity, right, of dealing with classwork, dealing with everything you have to do with the team and leadership. So it was a good progression along that. A lot of good mentors within the coaching staff, players that were there ahead of me. The upperclassmen learned a lot from Greg Schiano and Jim Gibbon and some of the guys that were there before me that I had an opportunity to watch and learn from. So it was physical maturity, but then also becoming the leader and understanding what that took.
Great. Outstanding. Ken, how about you?
So, I had a couple really good running back coach, Rocky, and his last name escapes me. You know what I'm talking about. Rocky, the running backs coach.
Reese?
He gave me sort of a couple fundamental things that made me better. One was, let's try to hit the hole with your shoulder square. I was kind of a slicer and a dicer and a little bit more of a freelancer. So sort of understanding where the blocking was coming from and how to set them up and, how to be ready when after you set your blocker up to really hit that thing hard. It was a different kind of offense. I kind of used to playing out of the I formation, and we played the wing T. And so it required some adjusting on my part. Instead of like just hitting everything full speed downhill, I had to run across the backfield and sort of set up the guards and the kick out blocks or the crackback blocks or whatever. As soon as I sort of really understood that, I really was able to then let my sort of athletic ability take over and, and had some pretty memorable games as a running back there. Coach Curtis was a conditioning freak. And I always thought I was in pretty good shape until I got to Bucknell, and this guy was running 300s corner to corner, you know what I mean? And he bet us one day that, I forget what the bet was, but essentially he said he could run more than any of us. And he did. It was crazy how much of a conditioning freak he was. So I ended up really increasing my sort of my endurance and my power just from the conditioning regimen that he put together, and then hitting the weight room, kind of like Scott. I probably came in about 160 pounds, 165 pounds. I left there probably, a solid 182, but man, was I as strong as I really increased my strength, overall strength, leg strength. I mean, we hit the weight room hard, and that was really good for me. I got into it. I loved it. Then when I went into the NFL, I had a really strong base for working out, because that's a whole nother level when you're working out with cats from Carolina and Alabama and UCLA and USC. And I was able to, pound for pound, be as strong as any of them. And then, the overall at Bucknell, I was able to do a lot of things. I returned punts, I returned kicks. I, caught the ball out of the backfield. So I was running routes. A couple of halfback option passes in there. So run, throw, catch, block, all that was really important to my growth as a running back at Bucknell.
Great. Will, how about you? How did you mature during your time here with Bucknell football?
Yeah, it's just adjusting to the speed and the size. I mean, you get there and everyone is so much faster than high school, and and slowly you kind of reel it in with you go from playing multiple sports in high school to working out in the gym. I mean, I worked out 3 hours a day, 6 days a week once I hit college. and just getting, but the speed. I mean, as Ken was saying about Coach Curtis, I can remember, early practices doing all these cutting drills, and I could barely get my legs out of the bed for that boom, 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 5:30, wake up call. I had to literally lift my legs out of the bed just from the different drills you weren't used to doing. And then, as you get, the big difference between freshman to sophomore year, it's really, the next year even just spring ball after freshman year, you're so much more acclimated to the speed and the power. But, that being said, I'm sure I never would have laid a glove on Ken Jenkins. I never laid a glove on Earl Beacham. I never laid a glove on Bobby Gibbon. I mean, I played against those two guys multiple years, and just the quickness, just never laid a glove on any of them. So there's guys you just can't touch. And but you get there, like everything in life, you adjust to the higher levels and you find a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it certainly helps the football team a whole lot when you've got great competition within the team. Offense goes against defense, and the more talent you have on each side of the ball, that just makes you better when you practice. And that certainly makes a difference on Saturdays. That I think a lot of things in college football has changed over the years, but that's one thing that's remained pretty constant. So, all right, I'm going to turn it on over to Rick Mottram. Again, Rick is our starting middle linebacker and team captain, and he's got a question for you guys.
All right, so first, Coach, I want to challenge you to
froze up.
Oh no!
You get back to camp, Coach.
Yeah, we lost you there, Rick. Could you say your challenge again?
I want to challenge you to the conditioning test on the first day as soon as we get back to campus. So we'll see how that goes.
Done. I'm there.
So for you guys, I would like to ask, what advice would you give me or any other players on the Bucknell football team about the college football experience at Bucknell?
Well, I would say that, again, Bucknell was a great balance of, when you come out of high school, you're in sort of that malleable time where you're growing in every aspect of your life. You're managing your own social life. You're managing your books. Your parents aren't around. You're managing your sports career. So Bucknell, I think, gives you an opportunity to sort of be so well-rounded when you finally graduate. And if there's more sports in your future, it'll show up. Again, I didn't have any idea that the NFL was in my future, and I wasn't focused on it one single bit. I really just wanted to get that 3.0 and manage my my conditioning and everything, and then also it was a great social life. I've got great friends from Bucknell that are lifelong friends, and so if I were you, I would just take it all in and try to do your best in every aspect of your experience there.
That's great. Thank you.
I'll go next. I would say, first of all, try to give back. Give back to Lewisburg. Give back to the program after you get out. It's really important to know that this is a torch being passed from the people that are, that you're looking at on these screens have been where you've been, and somebody was there before us. And make sure you give back. Give back to Lewisburg, the town of Lewisburg, good people in Lewisburg, and give back to the school because somebody before you did the same thing. And 10 years, 20 years from now, you're going to want that memory, some memories of some phenomenal games. Put it all on the line every time you play because those memories are cool. You got the memory of that game where this happened and that happened, and somebody gets the last second field goal and the celebration. I mean, the classes are important. You got to do well in school, but the memories are going to come from the football field and your friends. And like Ken was saying, we all have lifelong friends. I'm going to meet Dave Henry and his son, John Henry, tonight. I'm going to see John Hoyer and Tom Cusick and two other, Steve Beasy and Rob Ryan. I've talked to 30 Bucknellians this week. This is a random call. Todd picked a date. I'm going to talk to 30 Bucknellians this week between text and WebEx and Zoom and actually meeting people. So just drink it in. And football is going to be Bucknell football is going to be a huge part of your life now and forever. So just drink it in and enjoy it.
I would echo that. I mean, some of us are lucky, like Ken, has have a chance to go on and play beyond this. But for most people that play at Bucknell, the opportunity they're going to get to put the pads on and have that camaraderie with the teammates, play for a school, play for an environment. So it's like Will said, put everything you got into the season, into practice, develop the relationships, the bonds, and also the other thing is you learn. I mean, I took away from football probably more than I did from classes. Not that classes are you don't want to focus on that, but life skills. I mean, I was an engineering major. I wound up not doing really doing anything with my electrical engineering degree. I wound up getting into computers and programs and IT, but what I learned on the football field was more valuable to me in life, and learning how to deal with time management and all the other stuff you had the opportunity to do at Bucknell. And that was, again, the relationships, the bond, the camaraderie that you have. You'll never get back to that point in your life again. So enjoy it and do what you can while you're there, and maximize the opportunity that you have and that coach is giving you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, that's great stuff there. That's kind of, you hit the nail right on the head there, Scott. And that's one of the things we talk about as a team early on in camp, is just that the time you're going to have with the team and the experience you're going to have at Bucknell is going to be defined first and foremost by your football experience. And that's not to say that academics aren't important, but it's just when you're all said and done, the bonds that you form with your teammates and the experiences and the adversity, the shared adversity that you go through, that's really what makes you into the man that you are today. So those are great answers. Thanks, guys. Great question there, Rick. All right, let's talk about, I kind of alluded to it at the end of my last question, but the game of football has obviously evolved over the years. What are some of the biggest changes to the game that you see? And if you were playing today and versus back in the 80s, how might you prepare differently than you did? And Will, we'll start with you on this one.
It's funny. I played, we played the wing T in high school, and we played the similar offense at Bucknell. And, those days are long gone where it's just, hey, we're going to be bigger and stronger than you and just execute better and, Vince Lombardi style, and just win because of that. I think, in today's game, I think, Coach, you're the right guy, because we need somebody who's got, a good offensive mind that can, really do the X's and O's and put some smart game plans out there and have, it's got to be a good mix. The running back has to have a chance. The wide receivers have to have a chance. It's got to be a full mix of, let's open it up and make it exciting, but let's be smart and win and have great defenses. And you got to have the core of the offensive linemen, and it's just, it's a new way, and everybody's faster. And
yeah.
One thing I say to myself, if I was to do something different, I would literally train for a marathon before the season started, because your speed's important, but what's your speed throughout the game? Are you in the best, incredible, I can run full speed every single play shape? That's the kind of shape you need to be in. And to get in that kind of shape, you got to be in marathon type shape. So I would train for a marathon and then work on increasing my speed once I was in good enough shape to run a marathon. So that's what, and then, just focus on the cardiovascular side of it, because getting to the ball and speed is important.
Yeah. I remember that wing T offense very well. That was my high school offense when I was growing up, and that was kind of the one singular way we were taught football. It was pretty prevalent back in the 80s, no question about it. Scott, how about you?
Well, I got to Bucknell right when Landis came on board. So we changed the offense around to pro style, which is kind of what I had in high school. But the offenses that are running today are wild. I mean, I think they're great. I would have loved to have played in that type of an offense. But it is quite different. I think the defenses have changed quite a bit as well. I mean, they have to. So just preparing, for me in a quarterback position, it would be being able to run a little bit more, have a little bit more physicality as a runner, because I think you have to now as a quarterback. I mean, we ran a little bit option and different things like that, but a little bit, you have to be that threat as the quarterback to run, work on quickness and speed. But also, I think spend a lot more time reading defenses. Defenses were not as complicated back in the 80s. At least I didn't think they were, to what you see today. And trying to, and a lot more disguises, a lot more things like that. So for me, probably reading that aspect of it would probably have been, where I would have prepared a little bit more.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. The level of complexity and some of the rule changes that have happened have encouraged that type of flexibility and complexity of the games and to spread people out. You mentioned the defensive side of the ball really evolving as well too, and you're absolutely right. Most defenses this day and age, their base personnel is more of a nickel personnel, or at least what we would have called it back in the 80s or 90s. But now it's just kind of your base personnel. A lot of teams getting to two linebacker looks as a more of a standard look as opposed to a 3 or a 4 linebacker look. So the game has evolved a lot that way as well. Now, Ken, you got a chance to see it evolve and at the college level and at the NFL level. What are your thoughts?
So, a lot has changed with the game, especially in terms of it was way more of a running game back in the day, and grind it out and sort of assert your will over your opponents. In a lot of ways, the game has changed immensely with the new rules. It's less physical than it was from the standpoint. It's less intimidating, right? They've taken the intimidation out of the game. So now you have to, I would say, tackle instead of hit, or, but that was part of, wide receiver coming across the middle. He was either a tough guy like Gary Clark that I played with, who you could knock his face in the dirt and he'd get up and come back and catch another one on you right in front of the strong safety, and take it in the ribs. That part of the game has changed quite a bit. But I would say winning hasn't changed. Now, we've been through run and shoot offenses. We've been through everything you could possibly. The teams that win Super Bowls run the ball. The ones that go deep in the playoffs, they run the ball. And, it sets up everything else in my humble opinion. Obviously, as a running back, I never saw a toss sweep I didn't like, right? Anytime you call a toss sweep, I'm with it, you know what I mean? But if I think if you look at some of the most successful teams, they are extremely effective at running the football. And, some of the schemes are different too, right? And so, you got guys spread out, you can hopefully single up some guys and get your back one-on-one on somebody, and he can make a move, get you a first down or two, or break a long one. But certainly I think I worry about the way they go to training camp now, where you can't hit, because that, to me, used to be how you got your body ready for the season. Like, I remember being in camp with Dick Vermeil, and, we all knew that day 3 was the day we were looking forward to. It was the second practice on day 3. So we've had 2 on, let's say Monday, 2 on Tuesday, and the second practice on Wednesday was the one we all looked forward to, because the headache stopped. Because you're doing 30 minutes of blitz pickup drill twice a day. Again, I'm a $185, and everybody else was, 6'2", 230 at the smallest.
Right.
And so, your your brain was getting routed around and your body was getting smashed. And, you know, if you made it through training camp, likely you were going to make it through the season because you were tough enough,
Right.
you know. If, you know, it was a kind of way to weed out cats who, you know, who weren't going to stop, or cats who were going to, you know, take a day off because they got a sprained ankle. You know what I mean? They weren't looking for cats to take days off. You know, they were looking for guys who would play through injury, and that toughness and that mental toughness was key. And I think I'm seeing, I don't know what the real stats are, that, you know, when these cats break camp, they can only hit, you know, just a few days a week, and then they start really slamming their bodies full speed, and you're looking at injuries. So I don't know if there are more injuries early now, but it seems like there are than there were back in the day.
Yeah, it certainly has evolved, and, you know, those days of 3 practices or double sessions, you know, those days have, at least at the NCAA level, have gone away, and it's always been under the guise of, well, we're going to make the game safer. But you're exactly right. That's the trickiness, to sit here and say, well, we want to make the game as safe as possible and through the preseason camp, but we also want to make sure that the end result of that, a safer camp, doesn't equal more injuries during the season, because you're exactly right. I mean, while the game is not quite as violent as it was in the past, it's still a game of toughness. It's still a game of physical conditioning and being able to hit somebody, you know, in a proper manner and stay safe in the fourth quarter when you're tired, as it was in the first quarter, in the first opening kickoff. So that's the biggest issue, and that's, you know, the NCAA has to look at that every year, and that's why almost every year as a football coach we get handed down a new set of rules. Well, here's the conduct, here's what we're supposed to be able to do and can't do through the course of camp, through the course of the season. You know, and again, obviously, it's all done in the name of making the game safer, which is a great, you know, obviously a really good priority to have. But finding that recipe, finding that formula for what's the perfect amount of when you can hit and when you shouldn't hit, you know, they're still learning about that, and obviously the game's evolving in terms of the rules, and the equipment's evolving to make the game safer as well. But I think that's an ongoing discussion that's probably going to continue for many, many years as science can teach us more and more about the game. But thank you for that, guys.
I do think certainly the concussion protocol is something that is absolutely a smarter way to approach when you get a head injury. You know,
right.
we know more now than we knew then. And, you know, back then being tough was getting some smelling salt and going back in the game, right? And
right.
we know that is not cool anymore. So
right. Yeah.
There was no protocol.
There
Just wasn't.
Well, it wasn't a concussion. It was just getting your bell rung. You just got your bell rung. Get back in there. Well, good. All right. Well, we're gonna look at kind of a different way of looking back at your playing career and your time at Bucknell. Let's talk about, if you could go back and do it all again, what would be one thing that you would do differently, either with your football career or with academic studies or social life, just the overall Bucknell experience? And Scott, we'll start you off on this one.
Probably wouldn't have been an electrical engineer. That's probably the first thing I'm taking a little bit of a different course load. But seriously, that actually did help me, you know, with time management and long run probably helped. But one thing I would change from at least from a football perspective, you know, I think I probably I had a great career there, and I had great teammates. I think from my perspective, I probably would have driven things a little bit harder. You know, really focused. You know, become. You know, I was kind of more of a leader kind of a just show me type of thing, right? Now, I wasn't the real loud, rah, you know, in your face type of guy. It was kind of lead by example. I probably would have tried to incorporate a little bit more of because there are times when you need to get in somebody's face. I probably would have done a little bit more of that because I mean we had some opportunities that I think we let go because we weren't tough enough. We weren't as disciplined as a group, that we probably should have had each other's back and kind of pushed people a bit harder. And that's probably the one. It's a minor thing, but it's probably something I would have done a little bit differently.
I gotcha. Okay. All right, Ken, how about you?
That's a really tough one. I'm sitting here listening to you, trying to think of something. And, I kind of look at the overall experience and the overall sort of body of work and what the result was. It's kind of, the perspective I have now. Things worked out for me and without me like thinking about it too hard. You know what I mean? I love playing football so much that, I could have been playing JV and probably would have just been loving life just as much. Academically, I think I definitely could have gone a little harder and really pushed myself to, maybe, get some A's. I was like too comfortable with B's and high C's probably, but it was still rigorous and I learned a lot about myself, right? I learned how I can get a B in any class. I don't care if it's electrical engineering or biopsychology. It didn't really matter. I call myself a blue collar scholar, right? Where I just, whatever I needed to do to get 80% of the material into my brain, I knew how to do that. And I kind of stopped right there. Maybe I should have pushed myself a little further as far as that goes. But as a football experience, I think it was the right place for me. It was a little bit of a, big fish in a small pond, but it wasn't really because the competition was good. Mm-hmm. And, we played Rutgers and we played VMI and, some tough schools. There weren't too many Merchant Marine games. Who's that who said the Merchant Marine? Yeah, there weren't too many of those out there. But overall, it was just a beautiful experience for me, I have to tell you. Not much more could have been different.
Okay. All right, Will, what about you? Any regrets? Any things you do differently?
Yeah, and this is a good one for Rick because I was, you play multiple sports in high school and I played positions where I had a ball in my hand around the clock 365 days a year in high school. And then you go to college and you're playing defense and they throw you the football, 5 times a day in practice and slowly but surely your hands go, right? So that's something I would say if I could do it all over again, I would seriously get in front of a jugs gun or do a toss with a quarterback, maybe, a football jugs gun, and just 100, 200 footballs a day outside my dorm room, just catching the ball, catch. Because I played a position where the ball came my way. I probably should have had 6, 7, 8 interceptions my senior year. I think I had 1 because I just dropped the ball. It just went right through my hands. My hands were like stone by the time I got to be a senior. So that's one thing I would say to Rick, get in front of a jugs gun because the ball's going to come your way and you're going to want to be able to catch that ball and not be like, hands of stone. The other thing I would change, I would have been a business major because no matter what you do in life, you gotta run the business, the business of what you're doing. And, Scott said electrical engineer, I was a chemistry major. It's like, you go in different directions. The business of life is always going to pay off. So, if I would go back and do it again, I would have taken a lot more business classes, would have got an MBA right out of college or something, something like that. Just it sets the foundation for no matter what you do. So and the other thing is as a freshman, and I'm pretty sure they changed the rules, like we could go right into pledging fraternities and you're just not ready for that as an 18-year-old kid and combining that with football. It can just stay away from the party scene and concentrate on football. Have some beers with your friends, but take it easy and you don't want to wake up tired and groggy from Friday night and and have to worry about making a practice or a game or something like that and not being 100%, and you take it more seriously as you get older. I wish I had taken it way, way, way more seriously as a freshman.
Yeah. Well, great. That's some great advice. Thank you for that. And I'm trying to think, Rick, you're going to be up next with your question, but I'm pretty sure, Rick, you did a pretty good job. I mean, when you got that opportunity to get that ball in your hand, you made the most of it this season, right?
I think I was 3 for 3. Yeah. I've been working out over the summer with Taryn Earl, who's a quarterback, and he's been throwing them right through my hand. So I got to learn to catch them, I guess.
All right. Well, your question's up next.
All right. So my next question: what advice do you have about networking and finding the right job after Bucknell?
Important. I think the opportunities that you have as a captain, you're going to meet a lot of alumni. You're going to, events like this, Lewisburg Touchdown Club, or whatever's there now, those type of things, talking to media, all that kind of stuff. Get you comfortable talking to people you haven't met before. And to me, that's a huge, huge skill. Being able to go walk in a room, they probably won't do the conference, media day or whatever, but you're there with your peers, you're there with other coaches. Being able to walk in a room and introduce yourself to people you don't know, or that you just might have acquaintances, and being comfortable in your skin to have those conversations. A huge, huge thing that being in your position right now as a captain, leader of the team will maximize your ability to be comfortable doing that and learn from that. And networking is incredible. I mean, life is about that. If you're in sales, or even if you're in, if you're just, an engineer or an accountant, you've got to be able to network within your own company, understand what's going on, who the right people are, how to get things done. So I think you're in a unique position, and for you, it's being comfortable talking to people and introducing yourself and getting to understand what the lay of the land is, and making the most out of those connections, and don't be afraid to call people up and keep in touch with them. I mean, you don't have to call them up and ask them for something all the time, but hey, advice for this or that. It's the way the world works these days, and we're much more connected than we ever were before. And being comfortable doing that and using the tools that you have at your advantage is I think is vital.
Yeah, I would add that, obviously start with your sphere of influence, the people that you know, the people that your parents know, your alumni, the guys you played football with, their parents, if you're looking for work, one of the best questions you can ask anybody is, how did you become successful? And people love to talk about themselves, and they'll sit and they'll forever. And you must act interested, and you should be interested, because there are always going to be some jewels, some nuggets there that you can take away. So that's the first thing. And then the other thing is, and sort of like Scott, right? Don't be afraid to pivot. Like, you may have this degree that you think is going to be the next industry that's going to just, you'll be able to work in that same industry for 35 years and retire beautifully, couple of kids and couple of wives or whatever. But I'm just, but life doesn't turn out that way. I can't tell you how many times I had to reinvent myself with, as Will said, sort of with my general business degree. I've been in banking, I've been in government contracting, I was in the .com boom and bust. And now I'm in insurance and financial services, but it was imperative that I pivot. I was in banking when the banking industry went to hell. I was in the mortgage business, and the mortgage business goes up and goes down, and goes up and goes down. And so, your experience there as a football player, that sort of toughens you up and also gives you some enough backbone to be able to survive the tough times and recreate yourself when you need to. So again, don't be married to one thing, and if that thing falls apart, then your life is done. That life doesn't work that way. You got to keep on stepping.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think a lot of guys that graduate from Bucknell think that whatever they choose now is going to be what they're stuck with for the rest of their life. There's a lot of stress in that area.
Yeah, you see the industry's changing now, and Scott, I don't know how you got into IT. Is it IT that you're in, Scott?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. But IT wasn't the same
No,
IT when we were coming through.
No, and it's changed. I mean, I've stayed in that one industry, but I've gone across multiple different roles within it. From programming to management to more of a consulting role to sales to so it's even if you stay in one career, the way the world works today is you generally do not have that one job and then you stay there for 20 or 30 years. It just doesn't. It's to Ken's point. You got to be able to pivot. You got to be able to reinvent yourself, even within the career choice that you may have made. I mean, there's going to be different roles that open up for you, and you have to be able to recognize when they're there, and if that's the right way that you want to go. The world is different, quite different nowadays, and the opportunities are changing. I mean, industry is changing on a dime. Every 5 years there's new things that are coming out, and things change.
Right.
And I would say that, like my first job that I ever got was from a Bucknell football player. Kyle Urich was a defensive backs coach. And I moved to California and interviewed with Gallo Wine and, mentioned I went to Bucknell, and then the guy said, "Do you know Kyle Urich?" Sure, I know Kyle Urich. Well, he was in the office right down the hallway. I mean, I got the job. And you'd be shocked at how many people you get connected to through Bucknell. I could argue we have the best school spirit after people leave school as any school in the country. As I mentioned earlier, I'm going to see 6 Bucknellians in the next 24 hours. I'm going to talk to 30 Bucknellians just this week. Like I said, Kyle gave me my first job. I got sick, salmonella poisoning. Who did I choose for my lawyer? My best friend from Bucknell, John Hoyer. He was a lawyer. Of course, I'm going to give him the job, right? He won the case. Thank you very much. We both benefited. I mean, have you played golf with a billionaire? Because I have. I played golf with Ken Langone, right? I mean, everywhere you turn. I've used the phrase, Bucknellians are like cockroaches. We're everywhere, man. You can't get rid of us. No matter where you go in this country, you're going to run into somebody that went to Bucknell, wearing the gear. I mean, it's amazing. And just yesterday, I got, Ted Simpson played football. He said, "Hey, Will, I got a guy that needs some help with a trip." Boom. It's the connections just keep coming. It's amazing. So obviously, you're going to be close friends with all your Bucknell buddies, and and you'd be close to them no matter what. But I mean, the connections you get because everybody goes on and does well because, there's a lot of good entrepreneurial people and a lot of good people in general that go through Bucknell. So you'll see. Just stay connected with your friends. You'll see. It'll pay off like you cannot believe.
All right. I've already seen some Bucknell alumni on the train in New York City and random places wherever I go.
Yeah, I live in Dallas now, and I mean, when we first got down here, there was probably 2 or 3 of us in the area, and it's I credit the basketball program for it when they won a few and they beat Kansas and in the tournament, and they with the success, it's made it's raised the awareness of Bucknell, and there's quite a bit. I think some of the football players now are from the Texas area, from down around here. You're starting to see the spread of it, and I mean there are every once in a while you'll see a Bucknell sticker in a car, Bucknell sweatshirt being worn. 20 years ago that was not the case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, certainly our recruiting is nationwide now. We're out there, recruiting kids all the way from California to down in Florida through the Northeast. It's technology has helped make that more possible, but it's amazing to see, like when we did our One Herd One Day, I think California was the second state in terms of where we got the most donors and the most money from. So it's Bucknell truly is nationwide right now. Well, good. All right. Well, let's keep things rolling now, and let's get an update on your guys' personal life. I know you guys have each kind of given us glimpses as we've been talking here, but just anything that you haven't been able to update us on here so far through that discussion. And Ken, we'll start with you because we'd also like to hear about your post-Bucknell football experiences with the Lions and the Redskins and how that went as well.
So, I mean, that's going way back. That's going back more than 30 years. But I came out of Bucknell, and I had two free agent offers, one from the Eagles and one from the Redskins. I have some really funny stories to tell about, what it's like being a free agent rookie, sitting in front of Len Stiles and trying to negotiate your own contract, and he's on the phone, doesn't really give a hoot about about this little kid from Bucknell. It's a whole funny story about that. Then after playing in the NFL, I had finished my career back here in the Washington D.C. area where I'm from, and so that really gave me. I haven't left since, but it really gave me an opportunity to sort of leverage my 5 minutes of fame to stay employed, to begin a business career, and again, never been without an opportunity. I'm just sort of really blessed the way things worked out, to be here in my hometown, to be, again, 5 minutes of fame that I had. And when I needed to pivot, I had resources, right? So that was really important. My children are all grown and out of the house, 31 and 26. I'm about to be a grandfather in September for the first time.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I suppose. I suppose. You saw my big old beast dog behind me. He's a guy that keeps me in shape. We go out every morning and do our thing. But the industry that I'm in now happens to fit me really perfectly. And the company that I'm with right now, I think I'm going to be able to run the table out on this one with this particular company. Been here now for 6 years. National Financial Partners, NFP. We are a fourth largest privately owned insurance company in the world. And we have just lots of resources and all those business connections that I've made over the years, no matter what industry I was in, no matter, what event I went to. If I see those people now, we have even more to talk about because everybody's has some interest in sort of protecting their future or, running their businesses where they can perhaps save some money on health benefits for the employees or their D&O coverage for their boards. There's just lots and lots and lots of stuff to talk about. And, I never go into a conversation about business with any assumptions anymore because you don't know what keeps people up at night. It's different for everybody. And as long as you can have that conversation with a good general background of knowledge about everything from marketing to accounting to trends in the different industries, which is what I spend a lot of time, studying now, so that when I can actually target people within those industries. And if I just happen to run into someone in one of those industries, I've got some base knowledge about, what they could be facing. And then at that point, if we figure out that there's something that's keeping them up at night, it's likely that my company has a specific division to handle that. And I just bring in the experts after that. I don't know everything. It's too big to know everything. But once I identify something, I can, make the right introductions, bring the right resources to help those businesses solve those problems. That's where I am right now. My wife's an acupuncturist, so she actually keeps me healthy, man. Oh my goodness. I live with the health police. I'm not kidding. I eat more vegetables now than I've eaten in my entire life, but I'm staying as healthy as I can stay. I don't do much running anymore. I have a Peloton downstairs, hang out with the dog. And now I'm 61. I just turned 61, and I hope to be able to. I don't know that I'll ever really retire. My retirement, I envision myself being a starter on a public golf course, and that's old man Jenkins sitting there in the cart, punching your ticket, you know, telling you to behave yourself, telling you what the pin positions are, and have a good round.
All right. Sounds good. Will, how about you? Anything you want to share with us that you haven't so far on your personal life?
I'm in travel. I own a company that does scuba diving travel. So we do international trips all over the world. And I also work for Perry Golf, which is also travel. It's international golf travel, which specializes in Scotland and Ireland and all over the world. So it's basically my world is sports travel, which kind of combines my two passions in life. And I would give that advice to Rick: when you get out, follow your passion, man. Don't wait. Don't say I'm going to do something else and then I'm going to follow my passion. Right out of school, take the job you have the most passion for, no matter how much it pays. Just get in it, because the money will follow after you really get rolling, and then you have the best of both worlds. You'll be doing what you love to do, and you'll be making enough money to make a living, and it's a lot of fun. You know, you don't have any bad days when you're doing something you love to do. But I came to the marriage game very late in life. My kids are slightly younger than Ken's. I have a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, as most of my friends are going into retirement, I'm just getting my kids starting in kindergarten. But it's great. My wife, married a girl from California, and we moved to Wilmington. We live in Wilmington, North Carolina now, which we love. We love North Carolina. And we homeschool our kids. So, I work out of the house, so I'm home all day. I get to see the kids during the day. We love having them around. And in today's environment, nothing's changed for them, right? I'm working out of the house and we're homeschooling the kids. So we haven't really had to adjust, other than when we leave the house to go see somebody. So life is good. Feel very blessed, and God's a big part of my life, and it's all good. And when you keep your life centered around, God and being a good person, Rick, it's a good place to be. So keep that in mind.
Yep, absolutely.
Great stuff. All right, Scott, how about you? Updates?
So I took a little bit of a different approach than Will. I got married to a lady that I met at Bucknell. So we got married. She was 2 years behind me grade-wise. So she got married, I think, 2 weeks after she graduated. So we've been married. We just celebrated our 28th anniversary. We had 2 kids, 24 and 19. 24-year-old's out successful working. Actually, she's back home now because of COVID. She lives in Philadelphia, but she was in a small apartment downtown Philly. And after 2 months of quarantine, she said, I need to go somewhere where I can talk, see people and interact. So she came back home. The younger one is a freshman at Purdue studying nursing. So blessed to have 2 children. Good relationship. We actually just got back from Todd, thanks for rescheduling this or moving this and accommodating me, because we actually just flew back from Antigua last night. So we had a week to celebrate our anniversary. We got lucky at one island that was open. So Will, if I'd have known you were, scuba diving, I might have reached out to you at that point. Very blessed. Wife's working. I've had a number of jobs, but like Will said, the one thing I don't have, what Will have, I don't have the, IT was not my passion. So, his line of work with the sports seems a little bit more up my alley, but I've been fortunate enough to meet a number of good guys and have worked for some great companies. And hopefully, as Ken said, this is the one that kind of rides me out to the end of my career.
All right. Great answers. So appreciate that, fellas. All right, Rick, time for last couple of questions here. One from you and then one from me. You're up.
All right. So my last question: who was the teammate you admired the most throughout your career here, and why?
Oh my gosh. So there was a little cat named, 2 years ahead of me. His name was Al Simmons when he came to Bucknell, and he changed his name. He's Muslim, and he changed his name to it was Al Simmons, Hassan Abdallah, and he was about 5'6". He was probably about $155 or 60. He was the quickest son of a gun. He should have made the pros. that guy was so quick. It was amazing how just, but he also was very level-headed. And, you know, I was getting hot under the collar in a game, and I think I got cheap shotted from behind on the sideline or something. And the guy rolled me up under the bench, and I got up and I was ready to freaking kill him. And Hassan Abdullah, he pulled me. He just said, "Kenny, don't let anything take your mind off what you got to get done." And it was one of those aha moments. And I was like, okay, back to the huddle. And it was just, but his work ethic, he was super smart. And again, he just, you know, that one moment changed me as a player, because I was ready to fight. I was ready to kill. I was ready to, you know, go get revenge. And I didn't. So I give a lot of props to Hassan Abdullah.
I would probably say, I mean, there's a number of them, but one, and for a little bit of a different reason. Todd, I don't know if you remember Pat Morgan's, but Pat was a wide receiver. Didn't play. Didn't have the, you know, God's gift of you know, height or speed, but good guy, good hands. Never really got on the field. But every day at practice, every day at the workouts, off season, he was there busting his backside. Never really being rewarded with you know, stepping on the field on game day, but never had a bad attitude, never missed anything. And just watching from a distance, and not really from a distance, but just watching him and understanding that, you know, just the work ethic and who he was as a person. Great teammate, you know, and we actually, you know, he actually got in, I think it was the last game of our senior year. And he got in, and, you know, it was late in the game, and we audibled to a hitch, got him a catch. And just the smile, the pride, you know, the fun that everybody had for, you know, recognizing him, kind of like the guy, you know, that guy comes in at the end of the basketball game and hits a shot, whatever. It was, you know, just the fact that he stuck it out for 4 hard years of a lot of work and not really getting the fun and the experience that the others had on the field on game day. I think that's probably the one that kind of sticks out in my mind.
I would say for myself, and Scott knows him because he mentioned him and played with him, and that's Jimmy Given. Rest in peace. You know, Jimmy Given got dealt one of the hardest hands in life you can be dealt, and being diagnosed with ALS is about as brutal as it gets. And to see how he handled that as a man with just no fear and just, I mean, he planned his own funeral. I mean, the guy was just upbeat the whole time. I mean, I can remember, you know, Jim in a wheelchair and, you know, hard to understand. And I'm tossing up his, you know, his baby boy in the air, and, you know, the tears are coming down my face because this guy's smiling and he's just like, you know, feeling like he's been blessed when he's been dealt one of the most difficult hands you can possibly be dealt. And, you know, Rick, when you get out of this place, you know, it's all about your character. It's, you know, you're going to be dealt some difficult days. Trust me on that. And nobody gets a free ride. And, you know, Bucknell is a piece of the puzzle that prepares you for that future. And the more, you know, the more friendships you develop, the more, you know, things that you incorporate, whether it be hard work, determination, that kind of thing, trust me, it will pay off in life. And take advantage of it and follow in the footsteps and make the Bucknell football alumni proud.
Thank you, guys.
Wow, great stuff. That's awesome. Very powerful. Appreciate that. And so last question for me then just is any final thoughts that you guys have? Would love to say. I mean, you've been giving a lot of great advice to Rick. I'd love to hear some advice for as a a relatively new head coach of the program, and any just general thoughts about the state of our program and where we're going, where we're headed. So final thoughts. Ken, we'll start with you. You can go first.
Yeah, so obviously it is an incredibly emotional time in this country for a lot of things, right? I mean, we're dealing with epic COVID-19. I mean, you know, you got to pay attention to the science. I mean, I hope that you guys even have a season. Frankly, I'm not even sure what's gonna transpire. Then there are all these other social issues, and it really doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're on. I would like to echo Wil's comments about decency and respect, and across all the people that you meet in your life. Dignity and respect, and be truthful and honest, giving your honest effort is something that's really important. And for you, Rick, in particular, it's your generation. We're every generation hands off to the next generation and has to lead. And you guys are going to have to lead. You all happen to be probably came up in the most diverse atmosphere as any of us. And so your perspectives on the kind of world that you would like to see actually depends on you and what you do and how you carry yourself. And with that love and respect and compassion for people, no matter what, again, side of the political spectrum they're on or anything else, stay strong in the face of adversity, because you're going to get some, and you'll get people who disagree with you and then try to demean you because of what you believe. But you've got to stay strong, and hopefully the training that you're getting, as a young man, as an athlete, pick some role models that you know that you would like to emulate as you get older, and you have the opportunity to create the world that you want to create. And I want to just encourage you to state your core principles out loud and adhere to them. And when things get tough, repeat them to yourself. That's all I got to say.
Awesome stuff. Wil, how about you?
Yeah, I would say, as a captain, and I wish I had been better at this myself. It's almost like you're the leader of a family, and you really should know what's going on with everybody in your family. And, if somebody needs to be lifted up, if somebody needs a helping hand, you're the guy that should be doing it, Rick. And, you got to be the leader. You got to be the one that, takes initiative, and like I said, treat everybody on the team like a brother. Doesn't matter where they're from, what fraternity they're in, I mean, it's all about the brotherhood of the football team and you being the leader of that brotherhood. And, get to know every single guy on the team at a very personal level, and take that very seriously, because that you've been handed that trust, and it's your job to run with it. So don't leave anything to tank. And these 4 years will be gone so fast in the blink of an eye. You cannot believe it. And you look at the three of us. I mean, look at how far down the road we are. I mean, 30 plus years we are, and we all just blinked our eyes and it's boom. So try to slow it down, and just make sure you know every single guy on the team like you know your best friend on the team. That's would be my advice to you.
Yeah, you blink and you miss it.
Yeah, it's very true. And I don't think, I think what Ken and Will both said is awesome, and don't think I can add much to that, with the exception of Dave. I'll look at you and say a little bit of what Ken was saying is, I think your job is it's obviously to win football games, but in retrospect, when you really look back at it, I think your job is to raise men, to raise, take kids that come out of high school that may not be physically mature or mentally mature, and raise them into the type of men that we want to have leading the country. Because Bucknell is going to put to leadership positions from a job perspective, and you want those people to come out there and be the kind of folks that can deal with the adversity and challenges that today's world is. And obviously it's probably going to be a difficult season for you guys, whether, not knowing whether you'll have a season, that type of thing. But trying to shepherd these guys through that. To me, that's, if I was in a coaching role, and I did it with my girls, with the younger stuff, and it was, yes, would love to win the games, right? But it was my job of teaching them how to compete, or at that point learn the rules of the game, but how to be a good sport, and more than just winning. And I think you're in a unique position at this day and age to have a big impact on these guys, and to me that should be job number one.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. That's great stuff, phenomenal stuff from all of you guys. Certainly appreciate that. And Rick, a great job yourself. Thanks for being part of this as well. And I'm going to pass it on over here to Todd before we sign off.
Thanks, Coach. Well, guys, what a great session. I just found myself so deeply entrenched in listening to you guys. And I'm 54 years old myself, Rick. And you can learn something from anybody at any time. And just listening to the comments from Wil and Ken and Scott, I'm taking a lot away from this. And you can always keep your mind open to learning something new. And again, thank you, Rick, for taking the time today, and best of luck with the rest of your training. We hope you and your teammates are back here on campus soon, and that you do have a season. And that Friday night at West Point, you get it going with that first game. We're all praying that things work out well for everybody, and this pandemic turns more to the positive side. Again, to Ken, Wil, and Scott, thank you guys so much for juggling your schedules and making this work, and taking the time to give back to the program in this way. You guys are all staunch supporters of Bucknell football, and we really, really appreciate that. To all of you that watched today, thanks a lot for watching, and go Bison.